Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alliance of Independent Authors Advanced Self-Publishing Salon with me, Joanna Penn, and Orna Ross. Hi, Orna.
Hi, Joanna, and hello, everybody.
Yes, here we are. And this was going to be the new year, but we're kind of still in January. So as we record this, so officially it's still kind of the beginning of 2023. And that's what we're talking about in today's session. We're doing opportunities for indie authors in 2023. So we'll get into that in a minute. But before we do, we'll do our update. So Orna, what's going on with ALLi?
ALLi starts the new year always with a woo, and this year's been no exception. We've got lots of things going on because the reason it's always busy is because I think everybody, indie authors, use the new year as a way to recharge and set new plans and all that kind of thing. We are getting lots and lots of Amazon and Ingram queries, and I just wanted to mention that today and just ask members, this is addressed to members in particular, please use the Amazon and Ingram support desks first of all. We're totally there and happy to help and be a bridge between ourselves and all our partner members. But the first port of call has to be the actual support desk themselves. And very often that will clear your problem. You just need to be a little bit patient because they too are quite busy at this time of year. Yes, so we have produced two new booklets, I suppose you would call them, that I want to draw attention to. Melissa Addy in our campaigns desk now is doing lots and lots of things, and she has put together a very short guide to self-publishing for free. 15 or 16 points where free or almost free, little tiny cheats on one or two of them, but really a very useful guide for those of you whose budgets might be feeling a little bit stretched at this time of the year, and that's probably a lot of us. And also a guide, guidelines to author safety that came up last year with the whole Salman Rushdie thing, and one of our members did a very interesting sort of review and survey of the author community and found that a lot of authors had actually suffered a lot of safety issues. So we've put together a small guide on that, and they are available as usual in the member zone. Just go to publications, log in first, and navigate to publications, and then you'll find them there. And also the new directory is out. So yeah, lots to read and catch up on in January.
Yeah, that's good. And yeah, I feel there's so much. I mean, I've just written down that free guide because, I still use free. Absolutely. Yes, I use paid, but I still like free. And we all use different kinds of advertising and we reach different people. And, I'm always, BookBub, for example, always talk about how free books, people who download free books, a certain number go on and buy other books. And it is a way of discovery. So we've been using that for more than a decade and it still hasn't gone away. So absolutely. All
Sorry,
good.
I'm really glad you raised that because obviously I have confused people. This guide isn't a guide to use of free or freemium in self-publishing. It is a guide to actually producing and promoting your book for free or as close to free as possible. So, in other words, using services and
Okay.
friends and family and beta readers and so on. So, yeah, I'm glad I confused you because I probably confused loads of other people too. So it's actually a guide to self-publishing for very low cost. And obviously you're cutting corners if you do that a little bit. And, the ideal is to hire, 3 editors if you can afford it and so on. But this is a guide for those who haven't got money and who are maybe starting off and haven't got anything to invest. It's a guide particularly for those who are starting out. So yeah.
Okay. Right. So frugal. We'll say frugal. No, that's great. Yeah, fantastic. Well, talking of not frugal, I
Frugal, you've got exciting news. Share.
yes, so I am going to product placement. Oh, wrong way round. My pilgrimage book, which is a solo walking travel memoir, midlife book. It's very different to my normal books. My Kickstarter, as we record this, 31st of January 2023. It's got about 5 days left. I'm really happy with the response. It's far exceeded my expectations like far exceeded. This falls down between all the cracks in my current author platforms. I've, new genre, new platform, new format, hardback with images. So yeah, and I was really worried. And in fact, Kickstarter is really weird because it has a button that says launch, and when I was about to press it, my heart was hammering out my chest, which it hasn't done for many years with publishing. I still get that when I speak and things like that, but in terms of that chest banging, I was so nervous and worried and anxious, and it's worked out well. So in terms of fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of everything, falling flat on my face, looking like an idiot, hopefully that's not happened. If people
No,
are
you
interested,
tell people how well you've done. I mean, you set your goal at.
so
Tell
my
people.
goal was at £1,000, so I guess around $1,200, because I really didn't know what I would get, and at the moment it's at £18,000, which is I guess around 21,000 US dollars. So it's done very well, and as you know, and we're going to do a special show on crowdfunding in a couple of months because you've done this too. But essentially, it's a way of getting reaching readers direct. It's a way of getting a chunk of money up front in order to print things, and essentially it's like a mini, it was not an advance because the book is done, but it's essentially a big chunk of money up front. And then of course you can still publish everywhere else, and I will publish everywhere else in a few months time, like by May. So yeah, it's going really well. So that's my big thing that's going on. But also I've just put a pre-order up on a short story, so writing some fiction. And
Sorry, just before you leave the crowdfunder, tell people where they can, because it's still open for another few days, right?
yes, it is. So it's still at jfpenn.com/pilgrimage. And that will redirect after the Kickstarter's finished. So jfpenn.com/pilgrimage in order to have a look at that. In terms of the short story, I'm doing a lot with AI. And again, we're going to talk a bit about this, but I've got book cover design, all kinds of elements of writing. So generative AI, and I'm doing a lot on all the tools I'm using to do that. But and then I'm off to the US to speak at a conference. So I feel like the gates have opened and I'm like running at full tilt.
Wow.
So how about you?
Yeah, quieter, thankfully. I think we go through these cycles, don't we, when we're busy, and and then not so busy. So yeah, while ALLi is busy, I'm keeping my head down at the moment, just doing my usual monthly. I will start the speaking thing, but not until April this year. Got a poetry book coming for Valentine's Day, and doing some special signed hardbacks. So if you've got a loved one and you'd like to give them a nice signed and dedicated hardbook gift copy of poetry, then you can email me about that, info@ornaross.com. But my big thing that I've been working on in terms of, aside from writing, is moving my patrons over to my website, my reader patrons. So I'm really happy about that now. That's all set up and kind of ready to go. And it was quite a job. They were on Patreon. I had kind of author patrons and reader patrons, and it was all very kind of mixed up. So now that's segmented, and the reader patrons are all going to be serviced through the website now. So done, and looking forward to that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so busy start, and it's always good to remember, like, we are all in the organization of the Alliance of Independent Authors, but we also have our individual author careers as well. And of course, we have our different brands. Both Orna and I have fiction and nonfiction, and many people do in the community. And so, yeah, there's always things to be done on all this stuff. But equally, we should just say that we were going to do this last month, but we were both kind of burned out, so we moved it to the end of the month. And that's also important, is to remember to take time out and rest if you need to. So I feel like that was needed, and now I'm going at full tilt. But anything else, or should we get into the topic?
Let's get into the topic, because there are so many opportunities and we only have half an hour.
Okay, so let's get into the topic opportunities and trends for indie authors in 2023. So, number one, we have gone with the rise of the creator economy. So, this is essentially where consumers and readers and listeners fund the work of creatives. And of course, as authors, it is very exciting. So, Orna, why are you so excited about this?
It's growing like crazy, the creator economy. So, I mean, I started to get interested in this about 2 years ago when I was doing the self-publishing 3.0 guide. You could see that Web 3.0 is having a change in publishing, a sort of corresponding change. And that whole thing of authors selling direct and authors going directly to their readers became very interesting to me. And watching some members who were doing some interesting and unusual things that weren't all that visible. So we were kind of calling it the dark indie economy. And then since then, it has just been growing exponentially in the real sense of that word, where it's just going faster and faster and faster all the time. So last year, just to give people an idea, now this is the whole creator economy, which includes everything: video, audio, text, books, short writing on Substack and places like that. In July 2022, it was estimated to be worth more than $100 billion. And yeah, what does that mean? We don't know how much publishing is in there. We do know that authors have been very slow to take advantage of this, which means that this is a huge opportunity, because that 100 billion in July was up from just 20 billion 6 months before that. So that would give you an idea of the fact that so many buyers are now willing and happy and delighted to buy from the creator directly, but also that the big social media platforms and then other creator economy platforms set up specifically to be that bridge in between the creation consumer coming in very, very quickly to take advantage of that. And that's what's helping it to grow. So that's why I'm so excited about it, really. To me, it is true independence, where you are really, there's no middle person. It's you directly engaging with the reader. It really forces you to think about what your value offering is. I think that's one of the things that's so great about it. And it puts you in these scary situations like you were in there with your crowdfunder, where you have to put yourself out there in a whole new way. And I think when you're getting that those scared feelings is a sign that you really are being creative and you really are stretching yourself and expanding, which is what being creative is all about.
So to give people some more examples, because of course you said there's no third parties, but there are third parties, like we mentioned, Kickstarter, Patreon, Substack, for example, WooCommerce. So we are using technical tools, and some of them have fees, like Kickstarter is 5%, or fees to pay per month, but that's different to a publishing platform that takes a bigger chunk. That's what you mean, isn't it? We're still using technical tools. It's just different to a publishing platform.
Yes, so we're talking about digital books, and we're talking about technical tools. But when I spoke there about going direct, that I'm talking about, there are more direct platforms within this. So you've got a situation. So for example, Shopify is a much more direct engagement than Amazon, say,
Mm.
as a comparison. And WooCommerce, which is what I use on my own website now. I was talking about moving my reader patrons to my own website. I'm using WooCommerce, so there is a transaction fee and there is nothing else. There's just me, whatever I decide to give them, and a transaction fee on each thing. So then you've got other platforms, and we'll talk about those now, that are coming in to facilitate things, make it easier for us as creators and make it easier for people to buy. And also, there is an argument that people, the buyer trusts something like Shopify, say, more than ornerus.com. I think it's an argument that will hold less and less water as time goes on, and it depends on us as well how we decide to take advantage of this big opportunity, how we're going to actually construct it for ourselves. So I've gone for the absolute most indie of indie options on this, but there are lots of ways that you can do it. And as ever, authors will do it in all sorts of ways and in the way that best suits themselves. And that is the thing to do.
Mm. Yeah, so I use Shopify. I've got my Shopify store, creativepenbooks.com. And when we talk about, the connection, it's also that we get the email address of the buyer. So, of course, if someone buys your book on Amazon or Kobo or Apple or Ingram or whatever, you don't know who that is. And some of them might come through and sign up for your email list eventually, but generally we don't know who buys our books. And just talking about Kickstarter again, other crowdfunding, I was saying to Orna before we started recording that what is amazing is suddenly having ads. I can run a Facebook ad and I can actually see whether it converts or not, as opposed to just chucking traffic in the direction of a store and somehow trying to figure out whether it works. So I feel like there are lots of benefits. I mean, also sites like PayHip, which used to just be digital and ebooks, is now offering print as well. Obviously, we both do print through our own stores. So people don't just think it's ebook and audiobook, although shout out to BookFunnel. Damon at BookFunnel has enabled us all to do easy delivery of ebooks and audiobooks. And then we can do print. So some of the other ones, I guess we should just mention, we both use Patreon, as we've said, me for my podcast. What are the other things? Anything else you want to mention in terms of tools?
I think it's worth talking about NFTs in this context as well, because as time goes on, that will become more and more of an opportunity. Obviously, we have some authors who are already taking up that opportunity. So that, again, is a whole different thing that goes with that. And I wouldn't advise people to jump in there, as a lot of artists, for example, when it came to doing direct sales, NFTs were the first thing that they kind of went for. I think as authors, we have other choices that are better, but that's certainly worth talking about. Then, there's using short form platforms like Substack and Medium. And each of these has its own flavor. So depending on what you want to achieve. So for example, people often talk to me about setting up Patreon, and it becomes clear that they don't realize that Patreon won't actually get any patrons for you. It does all sorts of things for you, like looks after the taxation thing, and again, there's trust sort of thing if people are familiar with it and all of that. But it's not a discovery tool. So you need to sort of be very, very thoughtful and mindful about what you want to achieve and how you're going. Some of these things take time. Obviously, everything takes time, and some of these things take more time. Certainly, the setup takes a lot of time. I found I stopped blogging actually in October, so I could have the time and space to think about all this and how I was going to lay it out and make it happen, even though it seems like a very simple thing: move your reader members from Patreon to your website. Working it all out, what I was going to give them, how I was going to deliver, what I wanted to do and didn't want to do, how much time things were going to take, how much value it would actually bring. All those kinds of things have to be thought about. So I would encourage people to set aside time, to thinking time and strategizing time, and not leap into something, because building your following on any platform, whether it's your own or whether it's one of the other ones, it takes time and takes dedication. So you need to build in that time as well. So again, say with Medium and Substack, if you want discoverability, you're probably better going for Substack than Medium. So all of these things have to be taken into consideration.
And then I'd also just add on the mindset. So someone emailed me just today actually and said, but if I tell people to buy off my Shopify store, I won't get ranking on Amazon and I won't be able to hit a bestseller list. And I replied, yes, you are correct. And also someone else emailed me and said, if I move out of my exclusive deal with ACX, they tell me I have to withdraw the whole book and republish it again. So I lose all my reviews. So I can't publish wide unless I do that. And again, I had to reply, yes, you are correct. So what happens, as you mentioned, this kind of dark thing and this hidden data, nobody knows how much money I make on creativepenbooks.com except me. And I,
Yes,
I get
exactly.
more money in my bank account, but that it absolutely does not hit any bestseller lists. It does not hit any ranking. I now need to get reviews on my store. So as you said, there's a lot to think about, but it's also a real mindset shift, because for the last 15 years of being an independent author, or at least the last decade, it's always been about hitting algorithms, hitting lists. And so this mindset shift is actually very significant, I think.
It's huge. And I think you have to decide what kind of publisher you are. We did a show on that just before Christmas. For engagement publishers and for what we call craft publishers, you have to think about approaching this in a completely different way. If you're a volume publisher and you're on Amazon and you're hitting bestseller lists, and that is part of how you make your, that's how you make your money, then that's a whole different model. If you're going to go with this model, then you have to change lots of things. And as you say, primarily, you have to change how you think about this, because it's about valuing income and achievement and influence and impact over and above visibility. But it's
Mm.
part of a much bigger trend. It's not, we are never going to have bestseller lists in the way we had them in the past. Already we don't. When we
Mm.
read bestseller list in the newspaper, we know, as indie authors, we know just how segmented that list is, how removed it is, from the vast majority of authors who are publishing now. It's a tiny, tiny segment of authors who get into that list. They have to go, generally speaking, through, unless they're very exceptional indie author who has a very specific strategy, they're going to be trade published authors. So it's the same with an Amazon bestseller list. It's a segment. It's very often, and depending on your genre, of course, but it's very often KU authors who are going to be topping that list, and that is going to see off the vast majority of authors. So bestseller lists, of course, by definition, are a tiny group, but what I'm talking about is that they are the bestsellers within a segmented group. So when you go to do this creator economy approach, then you are doing something that is completely different. You're not trying to be visible in that way in order to earn more. You're not trying to please an algorithm. You're much more focused on your reader and on the product, the books, and on creative campaigns that are going to take you in a whole different way. So it's a completely different thing to set up, for example, your crowdfunder for your pilgrimage book than it is to put up a KU book on Amazon next week. And see, creative marketing in action. The
And for
people
people on
don't
the
want to
audio,
yeah.
I held up my book again. And this is a good tip. I mean, people who are on the video, you can see behind me, I have my books. Orna doesn't. Hence,
No, I just don't
sometimes
think, I never think that sells much books, to be honest.
it doesn't
But
matter. It looks good.
yeah, it looks great. Yeah, fair enough.
But let's move on. And we're wary of time, so let's move on to number 2, which is also a rise. So the rise and rise of creative uses for AI tools in writing, publishing, and book marketing. So pretty much, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard about some of these AI tools. ChatGPT went sort of viral before Christmas 2022. Text to image, things like Midjourney, DALL-E, Stable Diffusion. And yeah, I mean, a lot of writers who have resisted it up until now have actually tried. I've been getting emails every day. It's so, what a difference a year makes, because, 14 months ago, I was getting a lot of hate mail, and now I get emails that say, oh my goodness, you've changed my life. I'm loving these tools. This is really brilliant. So yeah, we're not going to go into the problems and challenges, because of course there are a lot of them, but I will point people at the ALLi ethical and practical guidelines for AI usage. We'll put a link in the notes. I refer to this everywhere, but Orna and I did that, about 18 months ago, wasn't it? We put that together, and I'm so glad we did that, because it still holds true. It is pretty much everything we said is right on. I mean, could we have foreseen what was happening, I guess?
I think we did, in a way, we felt it was coming. So we went and looked at that post in January, actually straight after Christmas, just feeling we better update this. It's bound to be very out of date, and found actually it wasn't. So there were few bits and pieces here and there, but the principles held true. And I think this is the way to tackle it for now, because as you say, there are sort of all sorts of challenges and all sorts of ethical issues, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're kind of talking about the opportunities. So yeah, do you want to tell people what you're using so far?
Yeah, some of the things I'm using. So one Pilgrimage hasn't got much in, but it does have a custom ornamental break of a scallop shell, which I made on Midjourney. So that's pretty much the only AI thing in Pilgrimage. But for my other writing, I'm using Pseudo-Write, which is built on GPT-3 as a kind of extended thesaurus for sensory description. It has a brilliant describe function. I use Midjourney now, as I pretty much stopped all my stock photo subscriptions, and I now use Midjourney to generate custom images for every blog post, for every podcast episode, for character ideation. I've got this short story coming up, which will have an AI book cover. I use ChatGPT, and this is the biggest thing that people have discovered, I think, is ChatGPT for rewriting and writing sales descriptions, doing book outlines, doing ads. Oh my goodness, for ad copy, it is brilliant. If you put in your book sales description, ask it to rewrite it in a more dramatic way, and then ask it to write 10 Facebook ad texts, you can do all of that. And I mean, how many writers love doing that? Not many. I also do sort of, you can interview characters and ask sort of questions of, imagine you are an astronaut in your 50s, and then ask them questions. What else do I do? Of course, Pro Writing Aid, Grammarly are AI powered, so we're already using that a lot. AI narrated audiobooks, I've done a few of those, and Apple has released AI narration now, as well as Google and other sites. So that's just, and obviously we all publish on Amazon, Google, Apple. They all use various AI engines for that. I mean, if you just use Google search or you use Google Maps, you are already using AI. So that's some of what I'm doing. And someone just asked, okay, when I mentioned Chat GPT is the one that I was mentioning there. It still has a free tier as we record this, which is often oversubscribed, but it's really, really good. So Orna, what about you? What are you using AI for?
I have tried most of the tools that you have mentioned there, either, Curiosity as director of ALLi, just checking things out. The ones that have stuck for me so far, Pseudo-Write, just love it. ChatGPT has just changed everything. It's just fantastic. And in personal life as well. And, Philip just heard yesterday he has to do a speech at his niece's wedding. So he got his basic first draft there, beautifully written and put together. And I think until you try it, you don't. I remember the day it came out, you were pinging me, I'm so excited, try it now. I said, do it at the weekend, try it now. And you were so right. I was there as soon as I tried it. I was pinging everybody saying, try it now. So it's really, really amazing. Yeah, Dream from Wamba. I don't use Midjourney. I stuck with Dream, and I really enjoy playing with that. I've used it for illustration of poetry and stuff. And yeah, I've tried the AI narration, didn't love it, so didn't stick with any of that yet. But yeah, I think it's Pseudo-Write and ChatGPT in terms of text generation, I think are miles ahead of anybody else, and that people are settling in around those. It's like they have become the market leaders already. And as you say, we're bound to have a fee slapped on us for ChatGPT very shortly. So anybody who has plans for something they'd like to do, get in there now while it is still free.
Yeah, although there are kind of rumors that they'll keep a free level because, of course, the data they're harvesting from humans asking questions is incredible. But they're rolling out a paid version so that it doesn't fail all the time. Because if you try, like I do it early in the British morning before the Americans are up, and I get much, much better speed than in the afternoon when the Americans are all on. But like you said about personal life, I've also had emails from writers who have chronic illness or literally only have a certain amount of energy to achieve something in a day. And what ChatGPT does is it's a lever. These are levers for us as individuals to do more. This doesn't replace our creativity. It's an enhancement. And what you said about you told everyone too, this is why ChatGPT is so amazing, the virality of it. I mean, Jonathan uses it every day too. So when he's at work, he's like, oh, I need to write this email to tell this person I don't want to have a meeting, but I need it to be, in a sensitive way. So he'll do a draft, which might sound angry, and then say, rewrite this in a more polite manner.
Yeah.
and it will do it. So there are so many ways to use these tools, and that's what we want to encourage people to do. Be curious, be open, and be ethical. Read the guidelines. Like, to me, the biggest thing is, okay, do not go onto ChatGPT and say, write a poem in the style of Orna Ross. Just don't do that, because it's just that's not what it's for. Use it to do other things, but don't use other people's IP. Basically, that's kind of my rule on Midjourney. I don't use an artist's name in my prompts, because who knows otherwise. So I'm just really careful. But yeah, be curious. I guess that would be my attitude. Any other attitudes, I guess, towards this that you've seen?
Yeah, experimental and playful, and remember that they can rewrite. The deeper you go with them and the more you ask and the more you feed them and the more you get used to them, and the better they get, so it isn't just a matter of the first thing that comes out. You ask another question and go a little deeper, and there's authors all over the place doing really good guides to how to use these tools for specific aspects of your writing. Say if you're a novelist, or and you want to do an outline, and then you want to develop that outline, you want to develop the setting, and so there are loads and loads of ways in which you can use these, and ways that we have yet to discover, I'm sure. So yeah, experiment, playful, it's fun, and don't worry too much about, there's a lot of negativity around the tools, but these tools are going to win through. And a lot of the concerns around copyright and so on, if you read what's happening in the cases, and if you actually engage with the copyright issues, you'll see that they are being misrepresented all over the place. So don't take your information on AI from social media. If you care about the ethics of it, as Joanna said, you can pop onto our ethical posts, and there are practical guidelines there for usage as well. But you can, go into it deeply, but don't take a lot of the hate stuff that's going around, because it's actually fear. It's fear of technology. It's sort of Ludditism. So yeah, the cases are going to make the law a lot clearer. But at the end of the day, our copyright as we have known it is now something that's not going to apply in the same way as it has applied in the past. What exactly that means, we'll know more in a few years to come. But we, in meantime, don't get left out just because you feel, oh, this is dangerous.
Yeah, and in fact, on my last show on the Creative Pen podcast, or 2 shows ago, I did like 30 minutes going through the 3 court cases right now, and I've got a copyright lawyer coming on soon to talk about these things. So yeah, keep learning, and if you feel resistance, then really look at why you feel resistance, and yeah, dive in anyway. You don't have to publish anything that you try. You can just keep it private. So, but you mentioned social media there, so we should move on to our number 3 for what we're wondering what the hell is going on with, which is the fragmentation and shifting of social media. So everyone will probably know that something happened with Twitter in the last quarter of 2022, which is, Elon Musk bought Twitter and proceeded to do all kinds of things that made a lot of people angry and leave the platform. Some people have gone to Mastodon, to Hive, to LinkedIn, have left social media altogether. I'm still on Twitter. I'm Twitter for the long term. I'm going down with that particular ship. But I have found that my usage has changed because the algorithms have changed, and I am actually leaning crazily more on Facebook, which is really odd. But Orna, what's your thought around Twitter? Because we've both done different things here, haven't we?
Yeah, I left Twitter, and that was huge for me because it was my favorite platform. It was my favorite social medium, but I did leave it because it wasn't, I know what was going on. But also, I felt that it was getting a little tired for me, and
Mhm.
it was quite a big decision at the time. And I have regretted it once or twice, to be
Mm.
honest. I've gone to tweet something and haven't been able to. And there are certain things that only fit on Twitter that don't fit on Facebook and don't fit on Insta. I use them in specific sorts of ways. So, but overall, I'm pleased, and I'm pleased because it rationalized my social media.
Mm.
I was somebody who kind of did a bit of everything, and in this move that I made it in the last quarter of last year, it was very much about dropping things. And the thing about being an indie author is that it's very easy to drop things you don't like. It's dropping the things that you do like and that
Mm.
you do enjoy, is the real challenge. So I think it's a measure of how much you're doing right is how much you like what you have to let go. And so I'm happy that it went. I'm focusing on Facebook for fiction and Instagram for
Mm.
poetry. And I find that the way in which all of them are operating has shifted hugely with the whole idea of social selling, with the idea of the creator economy. Meta has very much embraced this, seen how YouTube was doing YouTube takes the lion's share of the creator economy and has done it all the way through, but they are now copying that model, essentially the advertising model. And so it has changed how they do things, and it's good for us as authors. We can't know for sure what they're up to most of the time, but observing what's going on, I think, is definitely worth doing, and try to move with the trends. So of course the other big trend that we saw in publishing last year was book talk, which really did seem to make a significant difference. And I think for the early adopters who went in there and got stuck in, they really saw, for the first time in ages, I think, where a direct organic social media was sending books up the charts. Signs are that that's kind of easing off now as more people come onto the platform. It's the typical sort of trajectory
Mm.
that every platform goes through. But video as book promotion has definitely gone up hugely across the board. And that doesn't necessarily mean doing, what we're doing now, a live talk or anything, but it can be book trailers or whatever, those little smart and short video. That is a big opportunity, I think, in terms of getting your message across. If you can master short video, there's significant evidence that readers like it, and it does make them buy.
Mm. Yeah, so a few things on that. So you mentioned social selling, so we should just explain. So basically, when Orna puts a poem on Instagram, she can then link to a book on the store, which essentially goes through to her website to order a book. So it used to be that our whole thing around social media was, oh, you put a picture on Instagram, someone eventually follows you, they might click on your bio, and then they might go to a store, and then they might buy a book. So there were steps between someone seeing a social media post and actually buying a book. But with social selling, these platforms, essentially you can have almost like a buy button within the post. So that's what we mean by social selling. You also mentioned TikTok and the typical trajectory of a social media platform, which is and then early adopters do really well, and then everyone else jumps in. But what's different with TikTok is how fast it's happening. I mean, the trajectory is just huge. And I actually, we mentioned this back in the autumn, but I went to a Wired Smarter Day, and the TikTok people spoke, and they were already moving into TikTok Shop. So the trajectory of moving into sales, of moving into their own ecosystem was really, really fast. But as we've seen with other platforms like YouTube, many of the creators start to burn out because they're creating so much content. So again, it's trying to be quite relaxed about things, take a step back. Everything we're talking about is an opportunity. People listening, it is an opportunity to try something new, but also an opportunity to stop doing something. Like Orna stopped doing Twitter, and I guess I'm revisiting Facebook and Instagram because now I can measure things better because of my store. So I still don't do TikTok. I'm not interested in that, but I am interested in what is coming this year also with AI, which is text to video, generative video. So I don't like doing video because of all the, putting makeup on and being on camera. But if I can do video more easily in the same way I use ChatGPT to generate ads, then yes, I'm going to do that. So again, it's keeping an eye out for things that you think you could use. But again, it's also about how much things are changing, because some people are saying, oh, social media is dead. Now, I don't think social media is dead, but it's certainly changing and it's not the way it used to be. So what I would suggest to people is, don't just keep doing the same thing year after year. Think, how could I do things differently? How could I change it up, both for the benefit of business, but also your creative energy, because marketing should be creative, right? That's what we're talking about.
Absolutely. I think it's also worth, I agree with you that social media is not dead, because social media is just people talking to each other, and that's not going to die. It will take different forms though, and staying close to those trends and ideas, I think is important. The other thing that's not dead, and very much something that hasn't changed at all since we started, is email marketing. It is still the core, and social, all sorts of things lead to email marketing, and the creator economy that we're talking about completely relies on email marketing. So if you haven't got your emails, autoresponders and sign up forms and newsletters and stuff sorted, that is probably, after your writing, your top priority for right now. And it's something that remains an opportunity, is a way in which, you've got to understand your reader, you've got to understand, you can get better and better at it all the time. Platforms also that supply, email marketing services like ConvertKit and MailerLite, they are getting into providing products that you can sell as well. So it's like everything is converging around this idea that the creator is at the heart of things. And as indies, that puts us in a very good place to capitalize on opportunities, I think.
Yes, and as ever, we are still very excited about the way ahead. I mean, we've both been doing this for a long time now, and we always say, I think we were a bit tired. About 18 months ago, we talked about maybe shutting this down, and both of us were feeling like, oh, not much is happening. We don't have much to talk about. And then it was like everything took off again. And now it feels like, oh my goodness, like the roaring 20s are actually starting to happen. The AI takeoff, the creator economy takeoff, it feels as exciting to me as sort of 2008, 2009, when ebooks arrived and digital publishing and digital audiobooks. And I mean, many people might not remember that time, but it was so exciting, and it was kind of the Wild West, and you could jump in and you could do new things. And that's kind of how I feel about it now. The opportunities are just, it never stops, right, Orna?
There no shortage of opportunities, absolutely none, and any of them can be picked up. Of course, developing the ability to actually capitalize on those opportunities is a different thing, and that takes, as we were saying earlier on, it takes time, it takes planning, it takes engagement and experimentation, and being playful and being willing to go there, and not being afraid to drastically change. Maybe the best thing, if things aren't happening for you, definitely change something. And if they aren't happening, you've nothing to lose by trying something really, really different. So yeah, I think absolutely exciting times there, and huge opportunities there for authors who are willing to do the work. It's hard work, but it's definitely worth it now in a way that it has never been before.
Yeah, independence for the win. Woohoo! So there you go. There's your pep talk, everyone. So next month we will be back, and we will be talking about how to make more money than the average author, because there've been some really miserable surveys saying that authors just make so little money, and we want to talk about how you can pull certain levers to make more money, and essentially give you lots of ideas. But I guess quite a hardcore episode on a whole load of things you can do so you're above average, preferably comfortably well above average if you are interested in making money as a writer, which of course not everyone is. So that's what we'll be talking about next month. Orna, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Friday is the Publishing for Profit workshop. So those of you who, I know Michelle is here and I know Vicky is here and some other people who are there. We are going to be doing a 10 weeks to turn things around. So if you want to know more about that, selfpublishingadvice.org/workshops. Yeah, that's it, I think.
Brilliant.
This month.
Yeah, well, in the meantime, happy writing.
And happy publishing. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes. You okay?
We're still live.
Are we?
It still says we're live.